Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another plug side chat. Uh, so in this video, well, I'm just going to come out and say it. I think the Bolt Evie is a dangerous car, and you guys might be surprised to hear me say that, but there's a reason for it. Uh, we continue to have a rash of incidents where people have really harrowing road trips where it takes far too long to travel or something goes wrong, doesn't meet their expectations. Unfortunately, uh, the car itself ends up, I feel like, taking a brunt of the responsibility for that, or at least it's asked to. And here's the truth, right? The Bolt EV right now, and I said this from basically the first week that I owned it, it outdrives the current infrastructure. And I say that even being in California. What makes it a dangerous car is it's the first affordable, and right now, only affordable electric vehicle that really actually meets most people's needs. And we're not talking about, okay, your daily commute, right? We're talking about all of the different driving that you might need to do. It's again, at this point, the only electric vehicle that's affordable that does this. Yet we still have issues where, it started from early on. Uh, you know, Don Hall famously took like 13 hours to get from San Jose to Pasadena. And that story got spread everywhere, right? And yes, it was as much an impugnment on the infrastructure as it was on the car, but all of the places that spread that story refused to do any sort of a counter perspective, right? Uh, from my own personal experience, I had done that trip several times in the Bolt EV, actually 150 miles farther than she had to drive, all within a few months of her doing that trip. Nobody cares about that, right? Um, Someone who's fairly active in the Bolt community, Harvey, he made a trip from I believe it's Orange County in Southern California all the way up to Portland and then back again, right? You know, there are issues that go with any road trip, but he was able to make it just fine in line with his expectations. Uh, Buddy Boyd up in Canada, he drove his Bolt EV literally coast to coast from the Pacific to the Atlantic and back again. No problems. It fit exactly what his expectations were, right? Yet we recently have someone else who she had a drive from Portland down to Santa Cruz and back again that ended really poorly because of infrastructure issues, and maybe pushing the Bolt EV a little bit too hard. But bookending that, on either side, Nikki Gordon Bloomfield basically drove the exact same route, only going to Reno instead and back. As far as I know, she had no issues. The car did exactly what she expected it to do, uh, within its tolerances and within what her expectations were. And I just finished a trip in a single day. 15 hours the day was, but I made several stops I didn't need to make. I took an hour for lunch where I wasn't charging, right? And that trip was 700 miles, and it basically covered the distance of both this recent trip and the original trip that Don Hall took in about the same amount of time, right? So uh, it and this is the issue, though. You have a car now that in my opinion, is supremely capable. The infrastructure can't really keep up with it, and there's no sort of scaffolding, there's no sort of support structure. One thing that Tesla does well is they bring people into their ecosystem and they guide them through everything, right? Where to stop, how long to stop, how to charge. I mean, but even still, even with Tesla, there are people who get stranded or need to use level twos or need to use campsites or RV parks because the gap between certain superchargers are too big and they didn't account for the weather. A recent CNBC host tested out a Tesla and was, disturbed by the fact when they first plugged in at Kettleman City, it said it was going to be an hour for them to recharge. And then, of course, more experienced Tesla drivers jump in and say, yeah, well, you didn't even give it a chance to refresh and note, update the system to show you, oh, it's not actually going to take an hour. It's only going to take you about a half an hour, right? And all of these are valid, but this is the big issue, right? Going back through all of those other people, right? Uh, you talk about Harvey, you talk about Buddy, you talk about Nikki, you talk about me. Even recently, that race between Tesla Bjorn and I believe his name is Pavel with a Ionic EV and an Ampera-E, right? Tesla Bjorn. We're all really experienced with electric vehicles at this point, right? So, Buddy drove electric trucks before. Harvey had like a Leaf and a Fiat 500e. So, uh, a lot of the people who are running into issues right now, what I've observed with the Bolt EV are people who've never owned an electric vehicle before. And so with a car with 200, 230, 240, 250 miles of range, it's way easier to get yourself into trouble that you can't necessarily easily get yourself out of. It was like what we always used to talk about four-wheel drive. Smart people use four-wheel drive to get themselves out of trouble. Inexperienced people use four-wheel drive to get themselves into trouble. I feel like the Bolt EV is sort of living that out, right? Where if you notice, and this is my criticism for all of these media outlets, why don't you show the success stories? Why are you only focused on the times when the infrastructure fails someone, the times when the Bolt EV maybe doesn't meet up to someone's charging speed expectations, right? Why do you only focus on the negative stuff? I mean, I maybe there's some validity to it in terms of getting hits on your website or whatever, but why don't you share the success stories? Why don't you show people what successful experienced electric vehicle owners and drivers do with their Bolt EV? Just a thought, right? Because right now, um, I feel like the car is far more capable than people are giving credit for. It's certainly not a city car, not even close. But the problem is the infrastructure right now isn't what it needs to be to support inexperienced electric vehicle owners. And that needs to change, right? We need to make the system stronger and more supportive. So when we start seeing more cars like the Bolt EV, when we start seeing 200-mile plus Nissan Leafs or the Kona EV or the Jaguar I-Pace coming out, we need to make sure that those inexperienced EV owners know how to actually plan trips well, know how to actually use and leverage the infrastructure, and not just give them horror stories about how you're going to be stuck in the back of an alley somewhere with a 120 volt plug-in waiting days for your car to recharge. Uh, why don't you let them learn from the more experienced people? Anyway, I didn't want this to be as much of a rant, but I feel like it kind of needs to be. Uh, don't put it on the car necessarily. Don't even necessarily put it on the infrastructure. Experienced owners are working within this infrastructure just fine, right? So, um, anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I think there's been a major failing right now in terms of relaying stories about how capable electric vehicles are, as long as your expectations are in line with the current infrastructure. Um, but thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. But yeah, like I said, my experiences just don't match up to what seems to be the most promoted stories right now. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think it's doing a disservice to electric vehicles because you're scaring away potential drivers rather than empowering them by sharing stories of success. All right, well, those are my thoughts. Anyway, again, thank you guys for watching.